Okay, good morning everybody. Sorry, is anybody saying anything? Good morning everybody. Oh, it's much better. Hello, great to see so many of you. We are overwhelmed with numbers, which is absolutely fantastic. We had 190 when we did this event last year, and at close of play yesterday, the last person booked at 6 PM yesterday, and we reached 401. So we've more than doubled that, but we're missing a fair number at the moment, because I understand the M25 is closed and the M1 is closed due to accidents, so things are conspiring against us. But those of you who have made it, thank you very much indeed, and I'm sure we'll be joined by more people later on.
Morning everyone.
Morning.
Come on, it's not post-mag. Morning. Okay, welcome to the second Isle of Claims Annual Motor Conference here at the Barcello Hotel in Daventry. The theme for this year's conference, if you've probably seen, is Don't Look Back in Anger, and we've taken a sort of rock and roll slant to today's conference. The idea came from the fact that we don't want to look back and drag over old ground, but look to the future of this great industry. We're trying to be different in many ways. So having some fun, some laughs, plenty of opportunity to meet great people, and seeing some really interesting performances is what today is all about.
So let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing, what we have done over the last 2 years. So our job at Consumer Intelligence is to listen to the voice of consumers. We don't come from the insurance industry, we happen to work within this space, but what we're trying to do is to hear what consumers are telling us about their claims experience. And in order to do that, we've been conducting some extremely in-depth research over the last 2 years into consumers' behaviours and consumers' attitudes and perceptions about claims that have taken place.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ian. I think it's really important that we all learn from everything we hear today. So I would like to promise that this presentation will be the second worst presentation of the day, and hopefully that's going to help. What I'm talking about, electronic claims processes, I am going to focus on the MOJ personal injury portal. For those of you who don't do personal injury, please don't switch off. It is relevant. I think you'll see that this really is leading the way that I think claims processing is going to go.
So really, what we're going to see in the future, we talk to people and there's electric vehicles with what they call range extenders. So this is not your standard power plant like you see in a Prius, which could actually drive the thing once the batteries run out. This is almost like a donkey engine which drives a generator, which then drives the electric motor. So you're talking about a series hybrid. So they're becoming more apparent.
I think it's fair to say that from the general public's perspective, and probably from the perspective of a lot of people that aren't close to salvage, that salvage actually is probably termed more commonly than not as scrap. So arguably a blot on the landscape, or potentially a treasure trove if you're the sort of person that likes taking bits off cars.
One of the things that has developed is, and I guess as markets are squeezed and marginalised and things become more difficult for us all economy-wise, is trying to deliver more to your customers if you're a supplier. One of the things that we looked at was faster speed of collection of vehicles. The norm previously was sort of 2 to 3 days. I can say this because we're an American company and I know there's some Americans in the audience. So when they first came over, they sat with us and they said, you've got all this backlog of cars you're waiting to pick up. And we said, they're not a backlog of cars, they're the day after tomorrow's collections.
I think the efforts that body shops and other suppliers into the market are making at the moment are nothing short of transformed from those times. I think some of the cycle times that are being put in these days, some of the attention to what customers actually require from body shops is moving on leaps and bounds. And I think that's a huge, I should say sort of a huge thank you to the industry for doing that.
We have limited mileage, so you would expect us to sit competitively because people have got to choose that if they want a box, if they want limited mileage, then we've got to be sizably cheaper than a conventional product. Otherwise, we just wouldn't sell any. And because price comparison sites models are on acquisition cost, and they want to retain the customers on their site without going to one of their competitors, we was a real problem.
Okay, so what I'm going to give you is a quick overview of some of the practices that go on in some of the countries around the world that are very different to the UK. There's no real statistical data in there. I didn't want to bore you with the statistical data.